Hey traders, welcome to Charts and Coffee. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Shout out to my folks on X, the Simpler Trading YouTube at Raghee Horner, and of course, our Simpler Essentials room. Simpler Essentials room. Simpler Essentials room. Hope everyone's having a good morning. It's been a good week. It's been a week where follow through has not been as elusive, and that's where the account growth and that's where the consistency is going to come. So, if you're still sort of getting your sea legs after April and you're wondering, is the water safe again? It is. We just have to make sure we're being especially vigilant about our targets. And speaking of sea legs and events to keep an eye on, today we have FOMC member Bowman. Now, remember, Bowman was in many ways, I'm not blaming it on a single FOMC member at all, but Bowman was one of the key members who introduced this idea that traders should be thinking about a hawkish Federal Reserve. And that really was undone by Jerome Powell on the press conference after the most recent May 1st FOMC meeting. Bowman at 9 a.m. could be very interesting because I would consider Bowman one of the more hawkish members, or one that was freely speaking quite hawkishly. And seeing how Bowman's coming up right now, I'm going to presume a little bit of volatility kicking in. We'll see what kind of, what the aftermath of FOMC member Bowman is. After that, as we wrap up the clearing, so from 9:30 to 10, we've got that first 30 minutes after the bell, aka the clearing range. And that's where the preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment and likely more importantly, the University of Michigan inflation expectations are kicking in. So remember, we've got right at 10 a.m., big old hot zone waiting there for us, which is going to be potentially an opportunity to take advantage of volatility and maybe even some volatility to take advantage of some overnight positions, swing trades. So we'll be keeping an eye on both. Make sure you're aware of the economic calendar, whether that be earnings for a stock that you might be in or the events that will affect the broader averages, treasuries, metals, and expectations around what the Federal Reserve could do. Anytime we have an inflation number, it's important. Anytime we have some sort of job metric, it's important. So we need to keep an eye on that. All right. So again, not going to be surprised if Bowman creates a little bit of a sell-off here. And yeah, wow. Keep an eye on copper this morning, gang. For those of you that have been looking at Freeport McMoran, something that I definitely have. Also, in general, the metals and mining, keep an eye on that as well, because copper is having a morning, and that could mean opportunity. So we'll keep a pullback buy on the radar for copper, Freeport McMoran, maybe other names within the XME. Gold is having a morning as well. Take a look at the move in gold. I'm not going to say this is Bowman, but it's certainly volatility. Keep an eye on gold. We are definitely interested not only in potentially some day trades to the short side, but I got to tell you, I see that weakness on the 5-minute and the uptrend on the 1 hour for a short-term swing, even possibly a gray daily price movement range support based by a volatility zone. Right here, that support zone is waiting for us as well. So there might be some opportunity there. Lots of things that are shaping up. All right, so let's get to it. As always, gang, if you have any questions, feel free to type them on in. And let's get to it. First up, Mixed asks, good morning. Raghee, would the initial balance setting in the clearing range be better to use than the 30-minute? I look at it as a cumulative thing. So awesome question. We've been talking quite a bit about how do we prepare for the bell. It's only 9:05 a.m. And what is it that we're looking at? How do we prepare for the bell? And the way we prepare for the bell, whether it be gold or the S&P or bonds or what have you, is first step is that economic calendar. That's timing. Even the question about clearing range versus initial balance is timing. And what's the difference between the two? The clearing range is the first 30 minutes after the bell. So what is the high-low range in that period of time? And the initial balance is the first 1 hour after the bell. And what is the high-low range during that period of time? And, in terms of better to use, let's think of it as more levels that the market would have to conquer, would have to find support or resistance beyond to get some sort of clarity on follow through. Because that's really what we're always after. Will support or resistance hold is much more a function of what's the underlying structure. Is it a trend? Is it not? The second step is what levels are we able to break along the way? And that would just be the last one I would keep an eye on. The first one's going to be a number of pre-market levels. Where is that pre-market flow? Where is that flurry of buying or selling going to be greater? Around the point of control would be one level to look at. Around an anchored volume weighted average price would be another one to look at. The structure itself of the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow, the Russell, et cetera. That would be the overriding factor. What do I mean by that? Do we buy support or do we sell at resistance? Do we sell through support? Do we buy through resistance? Those are all the differences between what a momentum trader and a trend trader would look at. Being a trend trader, I'm going to look to see which support levels could hold and offer a buying opportunity, and what resistance levels could hold, giving me an opportunity maybe to look at puts. So those are the ways we want to prepare. The last thing is going to be the initial balance. Are we able to get beyond that range? And that's the way that I'll look at it. Would I wait for that? Too much of the morning could go by. Now, if we were still in the environment we were in April, where the VIX was elevated over 16 and indices were having a difficult time finding some footing around the VWAP on the daily, I'd probably say yes, but I don't see that as the environment we're dealing with right now. So the simple answer would be no, but better look at it as cumulative steps that price could take moving in a specific direction, starting with those pre-market flow levels, point of control, anchored VWAP, the 5-minute structure before the bell. And then we can look at it as different stages of market weakness or strength, or even chop if we're stuck in the ranges of, for example, that initial balance high-low or that clearing range high-low. Thanks for the question. Next up is good morning. Let's see. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it. All right. Line Watcher asks, good morning. As volatility eases, yes, let's take a look at the VIX. As volatility eases, is it still smart to trade options? Oh, gosh, yeah. So remember, it depends on what, so when we say trade, there's two ways to trade options, right? I could either be a buyer of premium, so debit trades, or I could be a seller of premium. I don't do the latter. I'm not a fan of selling premium, although it's fine. It's just not what I do. So is it smart? Who needs what is the question. If volatility continues to drop and trends continue and follow through, my approach would be to buy calls, buy puts in that lower cost, lower volatility environment. Higher volatility environments are going to favor people who like to sell premium because you're able to collect more for that option that you are selling. So for me, volatility dropping, absolutely. For what we do in the Sector Secrets Mastery Line Watcher, that's exactly what is ideal. And, as we look at the swings thus far through May, our follow through, our win rate, our success, basically our ability to grow account has been excellent. It's the opportunities are there, not as many as say January, February, March, but the opportunities are back. Okay, next up is QQQ in a pullback. Yes, but not yet. Not yet, Tommy. It depends on the time frame, right? I don't know intraday wise if that's going to be something I'll do, but I know that on an hourly or a daily, yes, I will look for pullback buys. Absolutely. All right, next up is AMD. Eddie, what are we looking at on AMD? Again, depends on the time frame. I am very, very uninterested in AMD on the 1 hour, but AMD is a long put, right? So if you're looking at shorting it or long puts, yes, but not until we get far higher than where we are right now. As far as what is more setting up with proximity, if I have green candles and it might be just for today or maybe going into Monday or Tuesday of next week. So today would be a today day trade, right? Today trade is really day trading. What's happening today? It's bullish. On the 1 hour, it's bullish. When I have those green candles, I'm really not looking for potential shorts. If we're above the previous session close, I'm not looking for puts or potential shorts. But on the daily, absolutely. We're just nowhere near a level for me to be able to do that. Maybe around 157.65, more ideally closer to 160. All right, Vivek, I appreciate that. And thanks for, look, I try to crank out some content that is actionable and useful and pertinent to what we're dealing with right now. So I appreciate your time. All right, Smoke Divine, great call on Teslas. Did I have a call on Tesla? I don't trade Tesla, but great call on Tesla this week. I'm happy it kept you out of harm's way. This week, your advice kept me away. I don't have a lot of clarity. I continue to see that Tesla is a little bit, well, strong to neutral. But in terms of clarity that would get me to say that when I'm looking at the vast sea of stocks and ETFs and futures and things that I could do something in, because remember, what we trade is more important than how we trade it. And if I look at what I can trade, to your point, I think there's better places for me to put my capital to work. I appreciate it. All right. So from our Simpler Essentials room, we have a question on the S&P. Now, remember, again, if it's an SPY, QQQ, SPX question, we really want to stay rooted in the S&P futures. It's a 23-hour version of those markets, and they're going to give us an edge over, my opinion, right, over someone who's waiting for 9:30 to see what the SPY does or what the SPX does. Now, remember, when it comes to the S&P, we really have to keep an eye on the Dow and the NASDAQ, because remember, the S&P is a little bit like both. It's got some sector and stock weighting that would be similar to the Dow. It's got some symbol stock, right? Think about the symbols that are weighted in the NASDAQ. That tech influence on the S&P. So we really want clarity in sort of those bookends of the Dow and the NAS before I make any kind of assessment of the ES, but it is above the previous session close by about 0.24%, as you can see here on the label. We're green candles. We're in an uptrend on the 1 hour, a little bit of heaviness on the 5-minute. But remember, just because the 5-minute is weak now doesn't mean it's going to be weak at 9:30 or 9:40 or 9:50. So I don't want to make too early an assessment on the 5. But as far as swing trades go, yeah, I would definitely want to be looking to the long side of the ES on a pullback, 1 hour or daily. Now, please note, I only look at 3 time frames. I'm not looking at 7 time frames. I'm not trading the 30-minute 1 week and the 15 the next and the daily the next. Every time frame has a job. So in the case of the 5, its job is to give me insight into day trades. The 1 hour is to give me insight into shorter term swings. The daily's job is to give me insight into longer term swings. So that being said, every time frame has a job. And then my job is to figure out which one gives me the best clarity within this conversation about NVIDIA. NVIDIA, again, is one of those names where it's a popular one. I get that everyone's interested in it because of, look, that's a lot of Q1 hangover. This persistent interest in NVIDIA. Look at that chart, gang. Is it going anywhere? What happens a lot of times is when something has, for example, look at the first 3 months of the year. I totally get the interest in NVIDIA through that span of time. Now contrast that to now. Haven't we changed the personality? Haven't we changed the structure? And so of all the things that I can do, if I still have sort of this Q1 memory, this Q1 affection for this stock, it's highly misplaced because it's not the stock it was. It's not the structure it was. That said, is it buyable? If one of these candles can remain green or yellow and hits the gray zone, I would be fine with some long calls. And in the meantime, I guess it kind of goes back to, how are you building your watch list? Has your watch list adapted from what we saw in Q1 of this year to what we're dealing with in Q2? Now, another thing we want to remember about NVIDIA is its weighting. NVIDIA is heavily weighted in, obviously, it is the semiconductor sector. It's 20+% of the SMH. It's the third heaviest weighted stock in XLK. So its influence on the NASDAQ, and even to a certain degree the S&P, is not insignificant, but it's not the only thing. Right? I wouldn't even consider it the most important thing. But when I'm asking myself what's happening in the NAS, what's happening in XLK, what's happening in SMH, absolutely, that would be important. But again, Q1 was great for NVIDIA. Q2 has been, this is Dramamine. This is seasick. My gosh, I mean, look at that chart. It's not what Q1 used to be. So very uninterested in NVIDIA. Gold. Let's see here. Am I setting up for potential trading gold? I would like to, yes, if it can pull back. I'm interested in GC or GLD. Green meets the gray. Trend follow on the 1 hour. Absolutely. If gold gets sent lower to about 23.50, I'm your Huckleberry Gold. Absolutely. All right. Next up is... I appreciate that, Ben. Yes. If these sessions are helpful, we've been doing Charts and Coffee for about 3 years. Yeah, I appreciate that, Ben. Just smash that like button, will you? I like that. Thanks, Ben. All right. How about Exxon? So, Christina, what I would say with Exxon is, first of all, what's happening with crude oil? Crude oil is having a tough time. We broke a couple key levels. It's trying to rally back higher. The best clarity that I can find related to crude is not crude. It's not the heaviest weighted stock in XLE, although I love where you're looking. It's actually Chevron. Chevron has been ridiculously persistent and holding on to green candles for the most part, and being more resilient than crude would suggest it would be. Is it a better looking stock than Exxon? For me, yes. If I'm going to choose, remember, trading is very much trade this, not that. Trading is very much a contrast of what symbol has the best chance for follow through. Now, if crude's heading higher and XLE is heading higher, Exxon should also join the party. But if you're looking for follow through, if you're looking for resilience, I would say Chevron over Exxon, but both would be potential buys. How does booking look? Let's take a peek. So booking, I'll tell you this, Vivek, booking is not a name that I look at very often because it's just simply not a scalable name. Maybe after it's split, maybe after the options come down to a reasonable price. I'm not interested in options that are not two things. It's a scalable approach. One, affordable and liquid, meaning can a smaller account, and by the way, we have accounts of all sorts of sizes in the Sector Secrets Mastery, because it's not about a large account. I trade a rather large account. But does that mean that traders with a small account can't follow the trades? Not at all. What we do is we think about, is an option something where we have sufficient open interest and the pricing where someone with a larger account could buy maybe a couple dozen options while a smaller account might buy a couple options, right? That's a scalable mindset. And booking simply doesn't meet that criteria for me, and not much on booking. Look, it's taking off, right? It's obviously had a big up candle. Not being a momentum trader, I don't want to jump in on something that's already moving. I want to catch that thing before this move. That's the difference between getting in after the move and hoping it keeps going, momentum trading, which it can, or position yourself in such a way where the likelihood of such a momentum move, a surge, is likely. So even if I was trading booking, the main move has been done for me. All right, next up is PWR. Taking a peek at PWR. I would generally look for the long side of something like this. So here's the thing with PWR. Kurt, for me to say PWR is something that would meet the criteria of being on my watch list, I'd have to step back or look at it from the perspective of moving through an index sector stock alignment. So where does PWR exist in sectors, in the niche? And what are the other stocks that are involved in that sector or niche with PWR. And then I've got to go through a comparison process, right? Is this the best symbol for taking advantage of that narrative? And again, the easiest way to do is ask yourself, all right, where does PWR trade? And what are other stocks like PWR? And is that general mood for that niche, for that industry, for that sector bullish? And if I can say confidently it's yes, then PWR might be one way to take advantage of it. All right, gang, that 20 minutes flies by. But as always, thank you so much for being here for Charts and Coffee. And I will see you on Sunday for the Top Tier Outlook show at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then I'll be back for Charts and Coffee on Monday. All right, gang, be good to each other. I'll talk with you soon.